Welcome to the Country Watch Political Intelligence Briefing, Quick Hits. I'm Denise Youngblood Coleman, the Editor-in-Chief and Senior International Affairs Analyst at Country Watch. Normally in these video briefings, I start with the featured country of the week and go on to discuss the other hot international stories. This week, I'm going to do things a little differently. I'm really going to focus on the big international story of the moment, Afghanistan. So there's good news, there's bad news, there's reality, and there's realignment. The good news is that the United States has carried out the largest airlift in human history in Afghanistan. The bad news is that a terror attack at the Kabul airport killed scores of people, including 13 United States servicemen. The reality is that the last US soldier departed Afghanistan before the August 31st, 2021 deadline, and the United States military is officially out of Afghanistan. The realignment is set forth in what I'm calling the Biden doctrine of foreign policy. Let's start with the evacuation of Americans and refugees from Afghanistan. There will inevitably be congressional hearings with bipartisan support to determine why the early days of the evacuation process was punctuated by distressing imagery of desperate people at the Kabul airport trying to get out of Afghanistan. There will be questions as to if the United States should have rushed for the exits prior to August 15th, 2021, when Kabul fell, and there will be declarations that leaving earlier would have delivered a terrible message in Afghanistan that would have in and of itself produced the very fall that we saw on August 15th, when Afghan President Ashraf Ghani fled the country. There will also be questions about the bureaucratic impediments that made it difficult to process special visas, SIVs, for Afghan allies. When President Biden took office, no SIV interviews for Afghans and their families had taken place in Kabul since March 2020. At President Biden's direction, the administration surged resources, restarted interviews, and processed the most visas in the program's history in the months before Kabul fell. That being said, the immediate priority remained the airlifting of all Americans and allies by the stated deadline of August 31st, 2021. Ahead of the deadline, more than 100,000 people were evacuated from Afghanistan, and the United States had carried out the biggest airlift in human history, a logistical feat for the ages. It should be measured against the withdrawal of United States forces from Vietnam decades ago, when in April 1975, approximately 7,000 people were evacuated from helicopters from points across Saigon. Now for the bad news. On August 26, 2021, suicide bombers from Islamic State Khorasan, ISK, carried out attacks outside the Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul, killing approximately 170 people, including 13 United States troops. The casualties also included children. I want to take a moment to note that with the United States controlling the inside of the Kabul airport and the Taliban holding sway outside, these two former enemies were working together to coordinate the evacuation. Now, with the terror attacks, they were finding themselves on the same side, however, uncomfortably or strategically having been targeted by ISK. The Taliban, long at odds with ISK, which is considered far more brutal and radical in its Islamist extremism, condemned the terror attack, saying via Twitter, the Islamic Emirate strongly condemns the bombing targeting civilians at Kabul airport. Hours after the attack, President Biden took responsibility for everything that had transpired since announcing the withdrawal. He also promised merciless retribution for the murder of United States troops and Afghan civilians, saying, "We will not forgive, we will not forget, we will hunt you down and make you pay." That retribution came days later in the form of drone attacks, one of which was believed to have tragically struck a civilian family, although an investigation into the matter was pending. Now, on to reality. The last days of August 2021 in Kabul were marked by a frantic rush to the proverbial exit, as tens of thousands of Americans, allies, and Afghans were evacuated from the country. With the deadline looming, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby gave the final evacuation tally. 123,000 people had been emergency evacuated from the Kabul airport in the largest airlift that the US military had ever conducted. Secretary of State Antony Blinken hailed the success of the emergency evacuation operation, saying, "This has been a massive military, diplomatic, and humanitarian undertaking, one of the most difficult in our nation's history, an extraordinary feat of logistics and coordination under some of the most challenging circumstances imaginable." With the Taliban now in control of Afghanistan, there were some questions about the United States military equipment left in the wake of the exit. Only 5 cargo aircraft were left in Kabul in the last hours of the withdrawal exercise, with staff tasked with meticulously shutting down operations. Among the tasks that were completed, the disabling of all artillery, vehicles, and aircraft that would be abandoned at the Kabul airport. Left behind but inoperable were 70 MRAPs, 27 Humvees, and 73 aircraft. According to General Frank McKenzie of Central Command, those aircraft will never fly again. He explained, when we go out, they will never be able to be operated by anyone. Several CRAMs were left intact until the very last moment. Those CRAMs were key to protecting the Kabul airfield from a volley of ISK rocket fire in the day ahead of the official exit. Those CRAMs were left operational until the very last minute. They were disposed of at the end using a thermite bomb. But once they were eliminated, the last United States cargo planes departed from Kabul at grave risk with no counter-artillery protection. That final flight departed at 19:29 GMT on August 30th, 2021, just hours before the start of the August 31st deadline. On board was Acting Ambassador Ross Wilson, the top United States diplomat in Afghanistan. Also on board that flight was Army General Chris Donahue, commander of the 82nd Airborne. Donahue was coordinating with the Taliban commando about the time of the United States' final departure, and right before he left, he significantly was the very last United States service member to board the flight. Before that last aircraft departed, Donahue sent a final message via the MIRC internet relay chat to exiting personnel as follows: "Job well done. I'm proud of you all." Soon thereafter, the final C-17 Globemaster military cargo plane taxied across the runway and made its final departure from the Kabul airport and out of Afghanistan airspace. Every single US service member was now out of Afghanistan. And with that, ahead of the August 31st, 2021 deadline, the United States military had completed its withdrawal from Afghanistan after a 20-year engagement in that country. America's longest war had finally come to a close. Next week, I will continue to cover events as they unfold in Afghanistan, and I will particularly discuss what I referred to earlier as the realignment. What I'm describing is a shift in foreign policy alignment in what I call the Biden doctrine. Later this month, the public will be able to purchase my comprehensive Afghanistan withdrawal report called Sunset in the Graveyard of Empires, available from the Country Watch website at www.countrywatch.com. May God bless our troops who have fought so valiantly for 20 years, and may God be with the people of Afghanistan. Thank you for your time, and remember now, more than ever, we live in an interconnected world.